Hello, good evening. Tonight is our last lecture of the semester, so that's exciting. And remember that you are actually recording a video this week for your discussion post, in which you will be analyzing one website of your choice. Hopefully, perhaps, discussing a little bit what I will be discussing here, which is by no means very professional. It is largely intuitive, but I wanted to connect what we have been doing in this course, which is essentially a history of graphic design through selected examples, and to do the same and try to figure out, in web design, how some of those concepts are visible, right? So I don't really want to discuss what constitutes a good website or a bad website, but rather to try to think of how different websites, which I think I chose good ones, but anyway, how they perhaps can be, if not directly connected, because it's a very different medium, at least they have resonances with some of the styles and the concerns of the designers that we have discussed in the course. So first of all, continuities and new challenges. What does this mean? I think the profession of graphic designer has changed tremendously because it incorporates motion graphics, right? And because it incorporates movement and calls to action. I'm sorry, calls to action and other things, interfaces, things that were obviously completely absent, let's say, from the graphic design that we have been studying. Now, they are not completely different entirely from wayfinding, right? Which is what we were going to do if we had had time. But wayfinding is really more in physical space. It does not necessarily involve technology, unless the technology is provided for the viewer. But in this case, web design is different. Another thing that I have noticed is that, in the profession of graphic designer nowadays, I think photography seems to be very important. If you are going to work in a large graphic design company or design company, there'll be probably specialized roles. So there'll be photographers and there will be designers, and then they may not be doing the same job. But if you work for a smaller company in the future, it's likely you will be doing a little bit of everything, right? You would be in charge of the photography, of editing the photographs, and then integrating them into design. And last but not least, writing seems to be becoming important as a skill for graphic designers, from what I can see. Graphic designers, again, in smaller company situations, small businesses who may be, working in social media and blogs and things like that, they are also sometimes asked to research and write a topic, and come up with different textual ways, but in terms of content, right? For the website, or for Instagram posts, or for blogs. So that is a whole new dimension, really, because writing, has been the province of writers, in one way or another, of journalists perhaps, but now it looks like graphic designers again need to be good at writing and proofreading, and a host of skills that in a way were not necessarily involved. I mean, they are involved with text, but not really this design. So I'm just telling you all this so that you know that, having taken all those English classes that you had to take and art history will pay off, right, in your life. So that is cool. All right. So first thing that we're going to talk about is the difference between a book and the website, right? This is the Gutenberg Bible, as it was the New Testament, actually, that was, it's not the Gutenberg Bible. This is the New Testament of the Gutenberg Bible, that was Martin Luther, as was then printed in 1522. And obviously a book is very different from a website. You flip pages, right? And you have reference pages at the end, like an index, perhaps. At the beginning, you have a table of contents. You might have a bibliography, right? All sorts of things you have page numbers. You might even have verse numbers in the Bible, especially. You have some illustrations that can be incorporated, but they are static. And the experience is completely different from, especially from present day websites that have a lot of movement and video and require, I mean, they don't require anything, but they really are there to kind of entertain you, right? Now, a book could be and continues to be very entertaining. It's just different kind of entertaining, right? I think again, you know, a book just works differently. So what I want to do is, just for fun, there's this video, which is an IKEA commercial. We just looked at it or watched it in my visual literacy course, and we watched it last semester in visual literacy. And I think it's completely appropriate to kind of introduce this topic. It's even funny, right? So I'm just going to show it to you, and hopefully it will project on the screen. So, and I have to remove the headphones. I mean, you could watch it, but then I wouldn't be able to discuss it, right? So okay, no, wait.
You know, once in a while.
Wait. So I think I have to share. Yes. So then I'll share the video. All right. So this is very fun, and I hope you will enjoy it. Okay, and you are still seeing this, right? Okay. Sorry about that. Technical glitches. Yes. Okay. So I'll just leave it. I won't do it full screen. So have fun. Follow.
Something comes along that changes the way we live. A device so simple and intuitive, using it feels almost familiar. Introducing the 2015 IKEA catalog. It's not a digital book or an e-book. It's a book. The first thing to note is no cables, not even a power cable. The 2015 IKEA catalog comes fully charged, and the battery life is eternal. The interface is 7.5 by 8 inches, but can expand to 15 by 8 inches. The navigation is based on tactile touch technology that you can actually feel. Content comes pre-installed via 328 high-definition pages of inspiring home furnishing ideas. To start browsing, simply touch and drag. Right to left to move forwards. Left to right to move backwards. Notice something else? That's right, no lag. Each crystal clear page loads instantaneously, no matter how fast you scroll. If you want to get a quick overview, just hold it in the palm of your hand and using just your thumb, speed browse the content. If you find something you want to save for later, you can simply bookmark it. And even if you close the application, you can easily find the bookmark again. Amazing. What about multiple users? For that, we've introduced a simple color coding system to avoid confusion. If you want to share a particularly inspiring item, you literally share it. Another special feature is password protection, which is voice activated. Excuse me, that's mine. At IKEA, we feel that technology this life enhancing should be in the hands of everyone. So the 2015 IKEA catalog is free. You can download one from your mailbox, the one you open with a key. If it's not there, try refresh the next day. Or you can upload yourself to the IKEA store and find one there. Experience the power of a bookbook.
Okay.
Once upon a time,
Shut up. All right. So now I did unshare, right? Let's go back to that. Oh, I hope I don't have to do this for each website. That would be such a pain. No, this is what I need to do. Okay. All right. So I think I got this now. Let me put on the, there. Okay. So think of that. Isn't that funny? I thought it was super funny. And of course, it tells us that, you know, ultimately a website, it does sort of the same as a book. I mean, you obviously cannot shop from the book, right? But ultimately you can do just about everything else. But the, you know, the experience is very different, and a website can be very frustrating, and technology can be very frustrating. So sometimes a book could be not as frustrating, let's just say. So I thought that that was just a funny way to start this. So what we are going to do now is try to see that some of the design principles, in a way, or the, you know, lack of design principles, or the, you know, overwhelming design principles that we see, are still there in websites today, right? I mean, perhaps not as much as we see in this example that we have discussed so many times already, so this John Sanger and Sons, but that nevertheless, you know, they some of these websites intend to be functional, intend to get the attention of the viewer, and at the same time, they may be overwhelming, right? I mean, they can be functional. So we're going to look at eBay, right? And of course, it's not showing, so I'll have to, God, this is just very disturbing. Okay, well, I'm going to show you so many websites that I don't know how that's going to work. At any rate, this is eBay, all right? And then there's Amazon as well. Both of these websites are good, in my opinion. I mean, eBay is heavily criticized, and so is Amazon sometimes, and Craigslist, and you know, several others. But ultimately, however, I'm going to stop this because it's just getting annoying. However, they are, in a way, they are almost efficient because they have a search box in there, right? I mean, without it, I don't think we would get very far anywhere. So, you know, your recently viewed items, in my case, other things, all sorts of things. I mean, honestly, if one truly had to try to find something without the search, that would not be so easy. And the design, again, is filled with these pop-ups that are very distracting, that, you know, are again, I guess they are useful because now we are receiving an advertisement of a Dell computer, but ultimately they really are distracting. They are not aesthetically pleasing, right? So we also inevitably will have lots of colors, because, you know, a lot of these images, like these ones, for example, are based on my prior searches. So this means that, you know, the colors and the typefaces and whatever, they are not actually selected by a designer to match with each other, to have, you know, to be in harmony with each other, but rather they are just what it is, right? Because it's based, again, on selections, on things that I searched, right? Which you can see I used a lot of this for the class. And then other things, again, based on my recent views, and they have to do primarily with, you know, the things that in a way have nothing to do visually with each other. Now, is it useful? Is it okay? Yes, of course it is. In the end, we can buy from eBay, we can buy from Amazon. Things do get our attention. You know, we can eventually, once we learn our way, we can find out about, I know, payment methods and all sorts of things. But it really is chaotic, right? It is really quite chaotic. In the sense that it's very, and again, let's go back to that. Okay. It is very chaotic in the sense that we can't really distinguish very well. It's not necessarily a pleasing experience. I'm going to skip the Amazon, but it's the same principle, right? Because it's based on that. Now, the perhaps you know, most famous way of designing anything has to do with the high modernism that we have discussed in this class, coming from the Stil, coming from the Bauhaus, you know, those very foundational movements when it came to designing with three colors, for example, which we see here: black, white, or cream in this case, probably because the paper's old, and red, right? And this is really the foundation of the international style. And this is very different. It's, Roman words. This is the Capitalis Quadrata that we discussed at the beginning of the semester. But it has that same very structured, very balanced organization, right? The letters really, first of all, in part because the letters are one next to the other. We don't really see words in here unless you read Latin. But they really become a rhythm and a pattern, right? And they look pleasing. They are different from each other, but then at the same time they have a shared forms, right? Letter forms. So that idea of harmony and contrast and width and that changes over depending on the side of the letter, that is adapted. That all of that ultimately is something that we also see in these two foundational movements that began as avant-garde, but increasingly became the standard for design. The main difference also is the use of asymmetry, right? That we see here, that idea of vertical and horizontal, creating ultimately an implied grid, right, in the designs. So we have two websites to look at, and again, I'm going to just do one because otherwise we're never going to have a smooth lecture. But nevertheless, I think, again, the value of this type of design is that it's very efficient. It communicates the message clearly. It has a lot of contrast. The letter forms are legible, and they are very different from each other. They are also very systematically designed, right? So it has that clarity to it, that readability and that clarity. And so that continues to be, even in web design, continues to be very important, in part because of the functionality of the website, right? A website needs to be clear, at least ideally, so that we can find our way around it. But in addition to that, there can be an aesthetic clarity and strength given by the letter forms and the contrast in design and all of those things that can be visible in here and that we will see later with, for example, the use of Helvetica, right? So we're going to look at this one. And again, I'm going to stop share something different. All right. And here we are. This is the MU Basic, right? And this is a source for children's music. You can see, again, very, very, straightforward, right? That's really what it is. I do believe the typeface is Helvetica. It even has the square dot at the end. It does, however, have some, again, more contemporary things like these little creatures, I guess, that silhouettes of little animals that move, right? And it tells you, again, it has these movements that make it more interactive so that we're not bored with static text, but nevertheless, it's still very, very clear. So I'm hearing, oh, look at that. I'm hearing things that you probably are, you are not, but click on this when it's supposed to be very fun. This is for music for movement and sounds for movement. So again, you can see that a lot of the same principles continue to be used in web design. We have the producers, all these portraits. They are very, they have a kick to them, right? They are very engaging because each of them is dressed differently and they look different, but each of them has a completely flat background, right? So the figure pops to the foreground very clearly. So all of that is, again, that clarity that we associate with the high modernism that derives itself from the Bauhaus and from neoplasticism or the Stil, right? Then again, more symbols, movements, but again, nothing really is, we have high contrast between body text. This is not really body text, but it's smaller text, less important text, and the, more important text. And this is, again, an active website. It engages the viewer with questions, right? Instead of just telling you, it'll want you to respond with a question in your head, and then you can find out the answer by clicking. So it's, again, if from a website point of view, it really creates interactivity, but it's based on these international style principles that we see. Okay, so it's very cool. I really like it. Well, that's it. All right, we are just going to move on. So I think this does come from those principles of these movements that we discussed before. Okay, back to our PowerPoint. Okay, so now, okay. The next thing is websites that are aesthetically self-conscious and elegant. So the prior one was aesthetically pleasing and functional, right? And again, they both go hand in hand. The idea is that it's functional because you can easily find things, but it's aesthetically pleasing and kind of uplifting because of that colorful, strong design, right? That uses, again, bold letters and differences in type that clearly tells you where to find things. Now, this is a little bit different because it is aesthetically pleasing, but almost in a more self-conscious way, and definitely elegance, right, is at work here. We have 3 websites, and we're going to look at probably 2, just to, the idea of, again, typefaces that are very thick in some areas, right, wide, and then they go to the hairline. And in this case, we have the dot, right? This is the Broadway typeface, and it's very different, right? It's more modern, but the principle really is the same, right? Of something, one part is very thick, the other one is very, very thin. And so it creates that high contrast, which makes legibility difficult, except in a heading, okay? So if you try to really read this now, ready for printers, they all end up, it's just difficult. Occasionally I get, not any of you, thank goodness, but I get a student in a lower level class formatting their paper with something like this, right? And of course I have to change it because I can't read it. But I guess they don't know. Well, then we have 17, right? And this is, it's one of the versions of Bodoni, I believe. But nevertheless, it, again, very stylized, long letters, and, they get to be the hairline, etc., etc. And then the table of contents of Vanity Fair uses, again, thin letters, right? Monospaced, and stretches it out throughout the page, right? So again, very, very different. It's modern, but it's a different kind of modern. It's the, elegant modern. It's the one that in a way looks, I don't know, more self-conscious of aesthetics that are not functional, right? It's completely different from this in that sense. So we are going to look first at a wedding website, and it is pretty, I guess. So let's close and look at that. Okay. So this is actually a demo. It's not the full website, but this is Sarah and Stephen are getting married. And again, very stylized, right? So a sans serif and a serif, beautiful photo, right? I mean, very romanticized, clearly in an old house. She again, all, you know what I'm saying. I mean, everything looks very pleasing. The filter that has been run through the photograph makes it very light, without being bright, right? I mean, very light without being bright. Now, as you can see, I mean, there's really not that much contrast in here. One has to look for something here, right? It's not readily visible. It is, I mean, you could consider that this is a mistake, right, in terms of the design, and maybe it is, but at any rate, it's there, right? And perhaps it's on purpose, right? I mean, perhaps they want us to not be distracted from the beautiful photo. And then if we actually do need to find some information, like, I don't know, where the wedding is, or where the registry is, or any of that, then we actually go look for it, right? So it's not distracting, and that can be on purpose, right? So again, that very subtle inclusion of text. So if we click on our story, right, Well, there's very interesting. I actually did the quiz in case I could know any of the questions. I didn't. I don't know. Have no idea who these people are. But again, low contrast, very low contrast, right? Perhaps because again, the information is not the point. The point is looking at all these beautiful photos of this bride and groom, and you know, like falling in love with them as a couple, and you know, wanting to give them gifts as a result. These poor people, by the way, had to cancel their big wedding because of the pandemic. This is probably a 2020 website. Yeah, it is 2020. So at any rate, you know, movement, you know, like a lot of websites do now, there's like a hashtag where you can buy stuff for them. It's very, very simple, but it's beautiful. And we can tell again that that sophistication is really in the spirit of these other forms of graphic design that we have seen. And again, some of the animations, you could say, enhance that, right? So essentially we are being more entertained if we have some moving images, and if we have different photos, and if we have questions that ask us about, you know, how well they know each other, etc., etc. So that is the stuff with that. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. All right. And the other website that I want to show you is this one. It's a little bit different, but also elegant, right? Elegant in that sense. So again, I'm going to stop share. I'll get the hang of it by the end. So this one is a little busier, but it uses the dot, right here, and this thing stays throughout. It's about work, right? It's a company. It's about work, and it is about I don't know really what it is about. They are in the Netherlands and in Belgium. It's an international European company, but we do have again that thing that stays in there, and then you know, very small. I personally not a big fan of black background ever. It's difficult. So for me, so I don't really necessarily enjoy a lot of the things here, but again, it has that elegance in mind, right? Because again, what is the point of a black background? It's almost like when you're at the movies and you can see, you know, the black box, and the brilliance of the screen comes along. So again, you know, the contrast here, in my opinion, is very limited, right? It's not quite enough, but nevertheless, if the point is really reinforcing that this company is a good place to work at, then perhaps this is really the most important thing, right? It's not so much about finding lots of information quickly to shop, but rather, you know, to go and I mean, this is the first thing that you see, and you can see it in Spanish as well. Oh no, in English, I'm sorry. But then you can, you know, eat and drink perhaps are the most important, but the rest seem to be really, you're supposed to be enchanted by these images, right? So a lot like the designs that we looked at that were associated, like 17 here, right? So we look at 17, and it's a clear design, but really the big point is the visual, it's the visual delight given by this lovely lady that is kind of sprawling on the sand, presumably with a very small umbrella. And you know, it's a beautiful composition. So whether this is really telling you a message, you know, who she is and what film she is featured at or any of that, that doesn't matter, because we are really meant to be just enchanted by her, right? So I think, again, the function of the website, the privileging of this enchanting issue goes beyond the information in that sense. Here, you could say it's kind of the same, right? It's all text and it does give you information, but really we are going to be focusing on the design because it's so particular. Everything is spread out, right? So again, it's almost like it calls attention to itself in a really strong way. And again, this one in particular is difficult to read. And then this one is very elegant, right? Because it has a lot of white space. So I'm going to leave that one, but you can look at it later if you want. And again, what I'm trying to say is that a lot of the same concerns that have been present in graphic design up to this point continue to be present in web design, even if the medium of communication is really quite different. All right, and then we get to this, right? More like, we were looking at a lot of these last week, and sometimes references from the past. This is futurism, right? Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, this is the Dada, this is the Carter that we looked at, one of them, right? And this is Russian constructivism, and this is Paula Scher. So this is design that is much more expressive and personal, right? And it can be disruptive. So again, I think there are levels and you could say arrays and levels of where does this come from. So, but the point really of this kind of design is to make a personal point of view, not to be clear necessarily, though you could be. Not to be efficient, not to be, user-oriented, other than for the sake of really getting you excited about something, right? And even to confuse you in this case, right? So a lot of that is happening in web design. I think that we have a lot of almost, again, intentional confusion because it works. So we're going to be looking at, first we're going to look at the Public Theater website, which I wanted to see if it kind of still resonated with this aesthetic, and it actually does. So let's go there. Okay, so why is it dark? Okay, so this is the Public Theater, and you can see that this is the logo created by Scher, in which again, the letters have different widths and seem to create like a curve, right? Because of the shape, especially of the B and the C that are rounded. Again, that idea of, difference, right? Why do all the letters need to have the same width? Who said that? Is that a rule? That's what she's telling us, right? With that kind of design. I don't agree, and therefore mine will be different. Again, a lot of this, but this still has, as I told you before, this still has that, if not high modernism, that avant-garde look, because it has high contrast. We have a white background with black letters, and not red, because that perhaps would look too modernist, but orange, right? And some red as well, right? Because these colors just look good. It's very flat. There are no, other than those little, kind of illusions of a curve and a little bit of like overlapping clear or transparency, it really is quite flat, right? And then this is the part that is most fascinating. Each of the plays that are being shown at the theater, again, have the same type of design with, again, same aesthetic. And she even has made, oh, I can't click on it, but you see the D there, right? The D has this like scribble on it, right? So again, disrupting, that's a disruptive behavior in a way when it comes to letters, changing things, right? But subtly, we can still recognize the letters. We can still read. If it were longer text, perhaps we wouldn't be able, but because it's 3 words or 2 words, we definitely can. Same thing here, again, same aesthetic for everything, and it's well done. So, but it has that postmodern look to it, right? I mean, it adds that element of self-expression and confusion that perhaps humanizes it. It's not disruptive. Well, I don't know. I mean, depends on the point of view, but it's not terribly disruptive, but it is still, expressive, you could say. It is efficient as well once you get used to reading this. So, very cool. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to that. And we do have, oh, these are 2 of my favorites. I have to show them to you. They are original. So this is a school, right? That's actually called Future London Academy, but they say they base themselves on the Bauhaus. That's absolutely outrageous. And then this is very fun. It's about punk stuff. So the point I'm trying to make is that both of these websites are, I guess, especially the first one, right? They are on some level inspired by modernist aesthetics, especially again the futurism and the Dada, and the constructivism, but they are not international style, right? And the message that they are trying to convey is that this school, and again, I'm going to get to that this particular art school emphasizes a kind of different education, right? You can see that in the typography, first of all, it's not incredibly legible or readable for that matter. I mean, the Z's here, the S and the S's look like Z's. So it's a little bit off-putting, you could say. I mean, you get used to it. But again, when it comes to reading longer text, it's a little bit difficult, not to mention that these things become very distracting, right? It is pretty to look at, in my opinion, though. It has a little bit of, again, these graphic animations, and it has, again, some aspects of originality. Look at this, the use of the black and white photographs over the yellow background. That is how the Bauhaus and the constructivists did it, right? They would place, again, the photograph of a person against a solid colored background, and they call that the type of photo, right? Especially when they put typography on top of that. This is what this is, as I was telling you. It is a design school. They have a design school. It's probably quite expensive. I found the price somewhere. Where was it? Because I went through this. Like that. So you can go to this place if you want. Well, you see, it's not working very well. Oh, there it is. Cost 30. I mean, is this right? 35,000 pounds, right? For all 5 modules. So who knows? I mean, that's like, again, that's a college degree. I mean, I guess depends on how much you pay here, but at any rate, it is expensive, right? And so what it's telling you, there were some interesting messages here. This program is specially designed for creative leaders with 15 plus years of experience. They are usually CEOs, blah, 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 blah. But there was one that said, forget about boring professors. Oh, there it is. Forget boring professors and outdated business knowledge. You will be taught by CEOs, CTOs, and heads of design from the top businesses, startups, and product companies, right? And they didn't put their comma there. So they have a spelling mistake, a grammar mistake. So anyway, you can see how obviously they transitioned from one typeface to another one, right? And one that is far more legible, because they really do want you to read this. So again, the A is from the other alphabet, but then the actual text that they want you to read is in a sans serif, rounded letter that is very legible on the screen, right? And very readable on the screen. So all of that makes this fun to look at, and it's based on design principles, but this is literally postmodern, in my opinion, right? I mean, it really does not respond to a modernist aesthetic in the least. So having said that, let's go back. All right. So the last website is by far the most interesting, and it's about punk. Okay, so I'm gonna show you that. Okay. Oh, stop share now. Okay. So this is called Punk is Not Dead. All right. Punk is not dead. Now, look at this hot pink. Okay. And it kind of vibrates and goes on and on. This is clearly on purpose because it's part of the aesthetic that it's trying to promote. This is in French, by the way. It's a French project. What it is this is a research project called Punk is Not Dead, and then the subheading is coming. Okay, yes. A history of the punk scene in France from 1976 to 2016. And so again, this is a research project. It tells you everything about it. It's very cool to have a website as a research as kind of promote or show the research project. So, you know, look at this. Again, the whole thing has a tint of pink, and we have all the text. Of course, the serrated justification shows a lot more when you do that, right? So it even, you know, it really gives you a punk aesthetic, right? It's noisy. Oh, it actually has sound. Oh, it's not sounding now. It was before when I listened to it before. Oh, maybe. Okay. No. Okay. Well, it does have music. Maybe if you click on it, you'll find it. So again, these are really disturbing colors, right? I mean, like highlighter yellow, hot pink, everything goes against the grain, but that's because it embodies the aesthetic of punk, which is really to disrupt conventions, right? To go, it's a counterculture. This is largely illegible, right? I mean, you have to make an effort, but then again, you know, it goes with the whole concept. So I think these are presentations that these people are going to make. You can see Christopher Becker, and they are doing presentations. The pinned or pinned, I guess it's the acronym of the project. Punk is not dead. Pinned. Pink in progress. So they are presenting, I guess, at different situations. And here we have some musicians with these, you know, flashing things. The pin was a symbol of the punk, so that makes sense. Okay, pin team. So it gives you all sorts of information about it. It tells you again their affiliations. Of course, they tell you very much like you might remember the psychedelic posters. They also were all largely illegible, but then they would give you some clear text at the end or at the bottom, right? So you would be able to tell what was actually going on. Then you can click here and you can see some really cool things like pourquoi, which means why. And again, oh, there it is. That's the music. Let's see. Okay, so I want to keep. All right. So as I was telling you, so it tells you why are we doing this. This is really well done. You know, how we're doing it, or right now, pourquoi, qui. So this tells us who the researchers are, and look at this. This is very cool. They don't have photographs. They have these little things instead. And yeah, everything is animated. And again, it's just fun to look at. I don't think one could tolerate it for very long. It goes against all the principles of web design, in which things need to be pleasing and et cetera, right? But ultimately, it's because it's expressive. It's because it's about disruption and individuality, right? So these are all the researchers and what they are doing. And then the one that is not, resources. It's really cool. This one doesn't link anywhere. I found that interesting. Quant means when, and I guess it has to do with, oh, there it is. It did load. It didn't load today for me when I looked at, oh, this is really cool. So again, clearly, you know, this is, I don't think it's grunge per se, but it has that counterculture look to it, right? It's punk. So very cool. And then the other thing is that, like, when you go, you know, when you go to one of the squares, it highlights it essentially by giving you a contour line. All right, well, you can explore this on your own. It really is fascinating, and if you read a little French, it helps, but even if you don't, it's just fun to look at. And well, then that's kind of the end. All right, so my point with this little lecture was to, make us realize that a lot of the same concerns that we have seen through graphic design in this class and throughout the century and the 19th century as well, really are still very much at work in web design, right? And that there are these very many continuities, but ultimately there are also challenges because, again, it's a completely new medium. And as I was telling you before, creating content for this, for websites and posts and things like that, seems to be increasingly the job of a graphic designer, which was not necessarily the case years ago. And with that, I will bid you adieu. And you can please, if there's anything you need to submit, you have until the last day of class, because I have to grade it, right? So I will be catching up with the discussions this week, and you'll have everything graded before we move on into the final exam, which is really just the last exam. All right. Any questions, you let me know. All righty, have fun. And I look forward to your videos those are going to be due on Friday. All right, they don't have to be very long. Just read the instructions. Everything is there. See you.